When I found out my sister sold Mama's house behind my back, I didn't feel anger first. I felt used. Like the years I gave up for our family meant nothing to her but loose change. You ever love someone so much you mistake their selfishness for need? That's what I did with my sister Denise. I remember the day I left home for London. The smell of Mama's jasmine oil thick in the air, the slow tick of that old wall clock in the living room. Mama sat on the edge of her bed, her small hands trembling as she adjusted her scarf. "Go, Ruth," she said. "You've earned your peace." Denise stood by the doorway, arms folded, face tight in that way she always had, like every good thing that came to me was a theft from her. Still, she hugged me at the airport. Whispered, "Don't worry about Mama's house. I'll take care of everything." I believed her. After all, I'd spent nearly 10 years doing that myself. After Mama's stroke, I was the one who cleaned her, fed her, paid her bills. Denise would breeze in with gifts and selfies for Facebook, then disappear again. I told myself she was busy. She had kids, a husband, a full-time job. I didn't want to be the bitter sister. When Mama passed 2 years later, I thought maybe we could start fresh. We buried her under the flame tree behind the church, the air thick with red blossoms. Denise cried that day, big loud sobs that didn't sound quite real. Then she took off her sunglasses, looked me in the eye and said, "We'll keep the house, Ruth." It's what she would have wanted. "I'll manage it till you come back." I took her at her word, fool that I was. After the funeral, I left for London to start teaching. Denise handled the paperwork, at least that's what I thought. I wired money whenever she said the house needed repairs, new paint or termite treatment. She'd text pictures sometimes, all carefully framed, a newly scrubbed porch, fresh curtains, Mama's rose bushes still alive. But something in her tone changed after a year. She started sounding slick, always rushed, always with a reason not to talk long. "Everything's fine," she'd say. "You don't need to worry about it, Ruth. You've done enough." That was her favorite phrase. "You've done enough." And she said it like a compliment, but it always felt like a dismissal. When I offered to come home for a visit, she insisted it wasn't necessary. "The place is fine, I promise. And flights are expensive, you just stay focused on your new life, okay? Let me handle things here." Her voice would get sugary when she said it, that tone she used when she wanted something. Half pity, half poison. Still, I tried to believe her. Until last month. I was flying home from a conference in Johannesburg and decided to stop by for a few days. I hadn't been back in almost 3 years. The taxi turned onto our old street, and my heart actually lifted. I could almost smell Mama's stew, hear her humming from the porch. But then, there was no house where Mama's white clapboard home used to stand, with the blue shutters and the swing Daddy built. There was now a brand new duplex, all glass and grey concrete, like someone had erased our history and drawn over it. The air smelled of cement dust and new paint. A young man came out of the gate, holding a phone. "Can I help you, ma'am?" This house," I stammered. "Where's the old one?" "It belonged to the Mensa family." He looked puzzled. "Oh, the old place. It got torn down last year. The lady who owned it sold it to a developer. Denise, I think her name was." And my heart slammed against my ribs. "Denise," he nodded politely. "Yeah, she sold it off quick. They built these units after. I didn't even answer. I just walked away, my throat closing up." I pulled out my phone with shaking hands and dialed her number. She picked up on the second ring, all cheerful. "Hey, big sister." "You reached already?" "Denise," I said slowly, "where's Mama's house?" A beat too long. Then her voice softened, like she was talking to a child. "Oh, Ruth, I was going to tell you. It's Gone. Gone. I had to sell it, she said quickly. It was falling apart, Ruth. You know how much that place cost to maintain? And Tony lost his job, the property taxes. I cut her off. You sold it? Yes, she said, her tone snapping sharp before softening again. Look, don't make that tone with me. You weren't here. You don't know what it was like trying to handle everything alone. My chest burned. You sold our mother's house without telling me. Oh, please, she scoffed. Don't act like I didn't try. You're always busy. Always too busy for family, until there's drama. I did what had to be done. And I didn't even keep everything. I set aside half the money for you. Half? I repeated. Denise, you sold our home. Our mother's home behind my back, and now you're talking to me about half? Her voice turned syrupy again. Fake, calm. You're being dramatic, Ruth. I didn't betray anyone. I made a responsible decision. You should be thanking me. At least I didn't let it rot to the ground while you were off living your London life. Something inside me broke then. Not with rage, but with realization. My sister didn't even see what she'd done as wrong. I can't talk to you right now, I said quietly. Fine, she snapped. But don't expect me to feel guilty for keeping my family afloat. You think Mama would want me struggling just to make you feel good? I hung up. The street was so quiet I could hear the wind moving through the mango trees. The same trees Mama used to sit under with her tea. I stood there a long time, watching strangers walk in and out of that new house. A house that didn't know our laughter, our arguments, or the sound of Mama's slippers on the floor. Then I sat on a bench in the park down the road and cried. Not the loud kind, just the deep, trembling kind you can't control. Because it hit me. My sister didn't just sell the house. She sold the last piece of our mother that still felt alive. And she did it with a smile. I didn't sleep that night. I sat up in that little guest lodge, the kind with thin curtains and a humming ceiling fan, staring at the phone on my nightstand. Denise's number glowed on the screen like a dare. Every few minutes I'd pick it up, then put it back down again. My thoughts spun through the years, all the nights I'd stayed up feeding Mama, rubbing her swollen feet, whispering prayers while Denise sent messages like, "Hang in there, sis," from her couch across town. And now she wanted me to believe she'd sold Mama's house out of necessity. No, she sold it out of greed. By morning I'd decided I wasn't leaving without answers. Denise lived about 30 minutes away, in a gated estate she and Tony had moved into right after Mama's death. I'd helped with the deposit, something I rarely reminded her of, but never forgot. When she opened the door, she looked genuinely surprised, or maybe just unprepared to face me. Her hair was perfectly done, her nails glossy pink. The smell of coffee and vanilla candles floated through the hall. "Ruth," she said, her face stretching into a bright smile that didn't reach her eyes. "You should have told me you were coming. I would have picked you up." "I wanted to see the house first," I said. Her smile faltered. "Ah, so you've seen it then." I stepped inside without waiting for an invitation. Her home looked like a magazine spread, all white sofas and glass tables. New, expensive things everywhere. Things that glowed with a money that wasn't supposed to exist. "Nice place," I said. "Business must be good." She hesitated, brushing invisible dust off the counter. "You don't have to say it like that." "Like what? Like I'm living off you." "I told you I used the money responsibly. I cleared Tony's debts, paid off the kids' school fees, and built a new life with Mama's house money. I finished." Her face hardened. "You think it's that simple, Ruth? You have no idea the stress I've been under. You left. You got your freedom. You didn't have to deal with lawyers and taxes and maintenance. You left me to handle the burden, so yes, I made a decision." I took a slow breath. "Denise, you didn't handle it. You stole it. You sold something that wasn't yours to sell. She laughed, short and sharp. Oh, please. That house was falling apart. I practically lived there those last few months trying to keep it from collapsing. You should be thanking me for saving the value before it turned to dust. I stared at her, really stared, and realized something painful. She believed her own lies. I opened my bag and pulled out the copy of Mama's will I'd brought with me. Did you even read this? I asked quietly. Mama left that house to both of us, jointly. Any decision had to be mutual, which means you committed fraud, Denise. Her expression froze. Don't start threatening me with legal nonsense, Ruth. You wouldn't dare. Wouldn't I? The silence stretched long and thin. Somewhere in the distance, her kettle clicked off. Finally, she sighed, that theatrical, weary sigh she used whenever she wanted to look like the victim. Fine. Maybe I acted fast. Maybe I should have told you. But I did it for both of us. Look, I even set aside your half in a savings account. I can transfer it to you today if that's what you want. She turned toward her laptop like it was done, like that money could erase the betrayal. I don't want your half, Denise. She stopped typing. Then what do you want? I want to understand how you could do this to me. To Mama. You promised we'd protect that house. She spun back to face me, eyes sharp. Mama's dead, Ruth. You can't keep living your life chained to memories. That house wasn't a shrine. It was a burden. Her words sliced through me. And in that moment I saw it, the coldness under her charm, the resentment she'd been carrying since we were children. Denise had always felt like Mama favored me. Maybe she thought selling the house was her way of taking something back. You've always thought I had everything easy, I said quietly, but I was the one who stayed. I was the one who gave up my 20s to take care of her. I wasn't free, Denise. I was just trying to keep us together. She crossed her arms, smirking. And I'm the selfish one, right, because I refused to waste my life in that dying house? I nodded slowly. Yes, because you could have told me the truth. But instead, you smiled in my face and said you'd take care of it. She rolled her eyes. You're so dramatic, Ruth. You act like I burned the place down. No, I said softly. You just sold the only thing Mama left us, and then spent the money decorating your life. Her jaw clenched. If you're here to make me feel guilty, save it. I don't regret what I did. I survived. That's what you taught me, isn't it? It was the kind of logic you can't argue with. Because it isn't logic at all. I felt my hands trembling, so I reached for the mug on the counter to steady myself. The coffee had gone cold. I'm leaving, I said. She tilted her head, almost mockingly. Back to London already? No, I said. To the lawyer's office. That got her attention. Her face drained of colour. You wouldn't. Watch me. I walked to the door, my heart pounding but my steps steady. She called after me, her voice sharp now. No pretense left. Go ahead, Ruth. Drag me to court, if that's what you want. But remember, Mama's gone. You're fighting over ghosts. I turned to face her one last time. No, Denise. I'm fighting for what's right. Then I left. The sun outside was brutal, but the air felt clearer. I stood at the edge of her driveway and realized I'd just crossed a line. Not against her, but for myself. For Mama. Because if Denise thought she could erase our mother's memory with a sale agreement, she didn't know me at all. When I walked into the lawyer's office that Monday morning, I was running on 2 hours of sleep and pure determination. The receptionist smiled politely when I explained who I was, then disappeared into the back for what felt like forever. Finally, a man in his late 50s came out, adjusting his glasses. Mrs. Glasses. Mensa. Yes. I handled the transaction for your sister, Denise. The way he said her name flat, practice told me everything. This wasn't his first conversation like this. Good, I said, forcing a calm smile. Then you can help me understand how she managed to sell a house jointly owned by two people. He blinked, cleared his throat, and motioned for me to sit. There must be some misunderstanding. She presented all the necessary documentation. I slid Mama's will across the desk. Then maybe you should look at this. He read for a moment, his expression tightening. When he finally looked up, his tone had shifted. I see. You were not consulted in this sale? No, I said, not even informed. He exhaled slowly, took off his glasses, and rubbed his temple. Well then, Mrs. Mensah, what your sister did was not entirely legal. If the property was registered under both names, her signature alone would not be valid for a full sale. My stomach twisted. So you approved a fraudulent transaction? His face paled. It appears she provided an affidavit claiming full ownership. She must have stated that you'd relinquished your share when you moved overseas. I stared at him. An affidavit? You believe that? Without verification? He shifted uncomfortably. Your sister seemed very convincing. She had all the property documents, and she was desperate to finalize the sale quickly. She said the funds were for medical bills. I laughed softly, a hollow, humorless sound. She wasn't lying about that. Only the patient was her husband's car loan. The lawyer looked mortified. Mrs. Unnatural Distigbles in the did. Mensah, if you wish, you can file a claim to challenge the sale. It will be a lengthy process, but given the will, you may have a case. Then I'll do it, I said, standing up. Every step of it. As I left his office, I felt something I hadn't felt since Mama's passing control. For months, I'd been living with a quiet ache. Telling myself family peace was worth more than fairness. But peace built on deceit doesn't last. That afternoon, I went to the registry to confirm the paperwork, and there it was, my sister's signature beside a forged version of mine. The handwriting was careful, deliberate. Denise had even used my old signature from a document we'd both signed years ago. That was the moment my hurt hardened into something sharper. This wasn't just betrayal. It was calculation. A week later, I filed a formal complaint and began proceedings to contest the sale. Denise found out within hours. The phone calls came fast. The first was pleading. Ruth, please. We're sisters. You don't need to drag my name through the mud. The next was angry. You're doing this just to humiliate me. I knew you were jealous of how I've built my life. By the third call, she was screaming. You think you're some kind of saint? You left me here to clean up the mess. I didn't answer any of them. I let her words roll to voicemail, each one sounding less like guilt and more like fear. Then she switched tactics. She called my cousin Clara, who called me 2 hours later. Ruth, Clara said gently, Denise is a mess. She's telling everyone you're trying to ruin her. Maybe just talk to her. I closed my eyes, sighed. Did she tell you she forged my signature, Clara? Silence. Then a soft, oh. Yeah, I said. Oh. By evening, the whispers had already started. Aunt Mavis sent a long text about how family shouldn't take family to court. My uncle called to remind me, the dead don't care about land, Ruth. But Mama would have cared. I knew that in my bones. That house was her life's work. She built it with Daddy brick by brick, long before Denise and I were born. It wasn't just walls, it was history. And Denise had sold it to strangers for a few months of comfort. So I didn't back down. 2 weeks later, I walked into the mediation room, my lawyer by my side. Denise sat across the table, arms crossed, her expression smug. Her nails were freshly done bright coral, like she'd come to brunch, not a legal hearing. Well, well, she said, her voice lilting with sarcasm. Look at us, sisters turned enemies. You proud of yourself, Ruth? I'm not your enemy, Denise, I said evenly. But I won't let you erase Mama's legacy. She rolled her eyes. Oh, please, spare me the melodrama. You're angry because I made a hard choice you didn't have the guts to make. I stayed quiet because arguing with Denise was like shouting into a storm loud, pointless, exhausting. The mediator entered and began the session. Denise's lawyer spoke first, all polished and polite. My client believed she had full authority to sell the property, given her sister's relocation and lack of involvement. My lawyer leaned forward. Belief doesn't override a legal document, nor does absence negate ownership. The mediator turned to Denise. Did you forge your sister's signature on the sale agreement? Denise smiled, actually smiled, and said, It wasn't forging. I simply signed on her behalf. I didn't think it mattered. You could have heard a pin drop. Even her lawyer looked stunned. The mediator adjusted his glasses. You realize that constitutes fraud, Mrs. Cast. Taylor, Denise blinked innocently. Fraud is such a harsh word. I almost laughed. The audacity was breathtaking. After 2 hours of back and forth, the mediator concluded the sale would likely be declared invalid pending court approval. The developer would have to compensate both parties, and a criminal investigation into the signature forgery would proceed. Denise's composure finally cracked. Her face flushed red, and she leaned toward me across the table. You've destroyed me, she hissed. Do you even realize that? Tony's furious. The bank's freezing our accounts. Are you happy now? I met her eyes. I'm not happy, Denise. I'm heartbroken, but you did this to yourself. Her voice broke into a whisper. You think you're better than me. No, I said. I just remember what Mama taught us. Do right, even when it costs you. She looked away then, blinking fast, her jaw tight. For the first time since all this began, I saw something flicker across her face. Not anger, not arrogance. Shame. Just for a moment. And then, it was gone. When the session ended, I stepped outside into the sunlight. The city noise buzzed around me. Horns, chatter, the rhythm of life moving on. I took a deep breath and realized something I hadn't felt since the day I found that empty street where Mama's house used to stand. Peace. Not the easy kind. The hard-earned kind, the kind that comes after truth finally crawls out of hiding. After the mediation, the story spread through the family like spilled kerosene. All it needed was one spark, and my sister lit it herself. By the end of the week, half our relatives had called me, each conversation worse than the last. Ruth, why are you dragging this through court? Your sisters, for heaven's sake, talk it out. You know Denise was struggling. Why couldn't you just forgive her? But forgiveness without accountability is permission, and I wasn't going to keep giving Denise permission to rewrite the truth. The funny part, she still acted like the victim. She'd post little cryptic updates on Facebook. Some people only love you when they can control you. Or, when God elevates you, demons come disguised as family. People would flood her comments with heart emojis and stay strong sis messages. And I'd just scroll past them, my stomach twisting. Not from anger, but from the sadness of realizing how far gone she was. A few weeks later, the court froze the sale funds until ownership could be properly reviewed. Denise called me that night, her voice cold and shaking. I hope you're happy, she spat. They've seized everything. The buyers are threatening to sue. Tony's furious. You've ruined our lives. I held the phone close but didn't raise my voice. You ruined your own life when you lied. She laughed bitterly. You always think you're so moral. Perfect, Ruth. The obedient daughter, the selfless caretaker. You know what it felt like growing up in your shadow? Even Mama treated you like the golden child. Her words hit me like old dust. Nothing new, but still irritating in my lungs. You think Mama favored me? I said softly. Denise, she depended on me. There's a difference. You were the one she trusted. The one she left everything to. You think I didn't notice? All those years, you played the hero while I was just the selfish one. Because you were selfish, I said, the calm cracking in my tone. You came when there were photos to take and left when the work started. You sold our home and justified it. You've always thought your feelings excused your actions. There was silence. Then her voice dropped low, wounded, dangerous. You sound just like Mama. I'll take that as a compliment. She hung up. The next few weeks blurred into meetings with lawyers, property assessors, and endless paperwork. Each signature, each document, each visit to the courthouse was a reminder of what Denise had done. But something unexpected began to happen. People in town started whispering, not about me, but about her. The truth has a way of walking itself out into the open, even when you try to bury it. At the grocery store, one of our old neighbors stopped me. Ruth, I heard about the house, she said gently. I'm sorry. Your mama would be proud of you for standing up for her. At church after Sunday service, even Pastor Orsi approached me. These things happen in families, he said, but justice is part of healing too. It was the first time I didn't feel ashamed. And I could see it beginning to eat at Denise. She stopped posting on social media. Friends who'd once defended her began to go quiet. Her own husband, Tony, reached out to me one evening. I didn't expect that. He showed up at my guest house, awkward, hands twisting his cap. I came to apologize, he said, for everything Denise did. I didn't know she'd forged your name. I thought you'd both agreed. His voice was tired, older than it used to be. She told you that, I asked. He nodded. She said you'd given her your blessing to sell the place. I should have known better. I studied him. Why are you telling me this now? He sighed. Because I'm tired of the lies. And because she's falling apart, Ruth. She won't admit it, but she knows she went too far. I wanted to feel vindicated. But all I felt was heavy. Tony, I said quietly, I'm not doing this to destroy her. I just can't let Mama's name be trampled. He nodded slowly. I get that. Then he hesitated, glancing down at his hands. But she's not well. She hasn't been eating. She sits up crying all night. Maybe talk to her. I didn't answer right away. Because the truth is, even after everything, a part of me still loved my sister. That's the part that made it hurt so much. A week later, the court ruled the sale invalid. The buyers would be compensated by the developer's insurance, and the property title was reinstated, but the original house was gone forever. The land itself, however, was still ours. It should have felt like victory, but standing there, holding the court papers, all I could think was how hollow it felt. Mama's home, her garden, her kitchen, her scent was gone. No ruling could bring that back, so I drove straight to Denise's house. When she opened the door this time, she didn't look polished. Her hair was unbrushed, her eyes red. She'd lost weight. There was no candlelight or fake cheer, just the smell of stale air and regret. You won, she said, voice flat. Congratulations. I stepped inside quietly. Nobody won, Denise. She laughed, a small, broken sound. The court said otherwise. I sat down on the sofa. I didn't do this to punish you. Oh, please, she muttered. Don't start that righteous act again. I leaned forward. I did it because you broke something sacred. You lied, you cheated, and you thought love meant silence. I couldn't let that stand, eh? Her chin trembled. You think I don't know that? You think I haven't paid for it? Tony's leaving. The kids barely speak to me. Everyone in town looks at me like I'm a thief. Denise? She looked up, tears streaking her face. I just wanted to feel like I mattered, Ruth. Like I wasn't always behind you. You had the education, the respect, the patience. Everyone adored you. Me. I was the messy one, the selfish one. I wanted to do something on my own. I exhaled, my chest aching. By stealing from me, she shook her head, sobbing. I didn't mean to. I kept telling myself it wasn't a big deal, that you'd understand. But when it was done, I realized I'd lost more than a house. Her voice broke. I lost you. For a long time, I didn't move. Then I reached out and took her hand. It trembled in mine. I can't forget what you did, I said softly. But I can forgive you. For Mina's sake. For mine. She looked up, eyes wide with disbelief. After everything, I said, but forgiveness isn't the same as forgetting. You'll need to make it right. She nodded slowly, tears dripping onto her sleeve. That night, I left her house feeling lighter than I had in months. Not because everything was fixed. It wasn't, but because I'd finally let go of the anger that was eating me alive. Some wounds don't close neatly. They scar and they remind you, but they also make you stronger where you once broke. Forgiving Denise didn't erase what happened. It just gave me enough peace to live with it. The town, though, had its own memory. People talk. They always do. For months afterward, Denise couldn't walk into the market without feeling eyes on her. She'd tell people she didn't care. That gossip was just noise, but I could tell it wore her down. I didn't defend her, not at first. I was still healing myself. But when people started calling her the thief sister and whispering behind her back in church, something in me shifted. I remember one Sunday service Pastor Osi was preaching about grace and second chances. Denise was sitting 2 rows ahead of me, head bowed, her shoulders small and stiff. I could feel the tension in the room, the quiet judgment wrapped in holy silence. After service, one of the women leaned over and said softly, "Ruth, you handled that situation well. I don't know how you could forgive her." I looked at her for a long second and said, "Because she's my sister, and I'd rather see her rebuild than rot under people's opinions." The woman blinked, embarrassed. "Of course," she murmured, looking away. That's when I realized forgiveness isn't just an act, it's a protection. Not for the person who wronged you, but for your own soul. A few weeks later, Denise called. She asked if I could meet her at the land where Mama's house once stood. When I arrived, she was already there, standing on the edge of the property, looking small against the wide, empty plot. The developer had cleared it all, just levelled ground and a faint scent of sawdust left behind. "I thought it would hurt to come here," she said quietly, "but it just feels empty." I nodded. "It's not the same without the house." She turned to me, brushing her hair from her face. "I talked to the buyers. They're willing to sell the plot back at a reduced price. I've been saving. If you agree, we can rebuild it." Together, I studied her face, looking for the lie. But there wasn't one this time. Her eyes were tired, sincere. "Why?" I asked. She shrugged, so I nodded. "All right. We'll do it, but this time we build it with honesty." She smiled, small, genuine, and held out her hand. I took it. It wasn't a perfect reconciliation. But it was a beginning. Months passed, and we started planning. The process was slow. Arguments over layout, colours, and budget. But underneath the bickering, there was something healing about it. One afternoon, as we went over blueprints at the kitchen table, Denise looked up and said, "Do you think Mama would have forgiven me?" I paused. "I think she already did. Mama had a soft spot for you, even when you didn't deserve it." She laughed through her tears. I guess I inherited that from her. We shared a quiet moment, both of us remembering the same image, Mama humming to herself, stirring stew in her old clay pot, the smell of thyme and pepper filling the air. That's when I knew, no matter how much was lost, some things never really leave you. When construction finally began, the first bricks went up on a clear morning in late March. I stood there watching the workers dig, my hands resting on the fence, the sun warm against my back. Denise stood beside me, sipping water, her face calm. "You know," she said, "this time we should name it something, like a way to honor her." I smiled. Mama already did. She called it Grace House, remember? Her eyes softened. Then Grace it is. And so it became. As the months rolled by, we worked side by side, not always harmoniously, but truthfully. Denise still had her sharp edges, her moods, her pride, but something in her had softened. She'd started volunteering at a local shelter, spending her weekends helping single mothers. Maybe guilt had turned to purpose. Maybe she'd finally found a way to give back. I didn't question it. I just let her be. The day the house was finished, I brought Mama's old photograph, the one where she stood in front of the porch in her Sunday dress, smiling shyly. Denise held the frame as we hung it by the entryway. We stood there, both silent for a moment. "She'd like this," Denise whispered. I nodded. "She'd like that we found our way back to each other." Denise's hand brushed mine, tentative but sure. "Thank you for not giving up on me." I looked at her, really looked. "Just don't give up on yourself again." She smiled. "I won't." Later that evening, after the workers left and the sun dipped low, I stayed behind alone. The house was quiet, the walls still smelling of fresh paint. I walked through every room, letting the memories rise. Mama's laughter in the kitchen, the sound of rain against the old tin roof. Denise and me arguing over who'd get the bigger bedroom. So much had changed, but somehow, standing there, I felt her presence again. Not in the walls, but in the peace between them. Forgiveness had done that. Not money, not justice, not even rebuilding, but forgiveness. It had given me my mother back. When I locked the door that night, I looked back one last time. The porch light glowed softly against the dark, the new Grace house standing tall again. Not perfect, but standing. And I whispered into the quiet air, "We did it, Mama. We brought it home." You know, people think betrayal always comes from enemies. But in my life, it came wearing my sister's perfume. If you'd told me years ago that Denise and I would ever rebuild that house, or rebuild us, I would have laughed in your face. Back then, all I could see was what she'd taken. But now, when I stand on that new porch, I see what we managed to give back. Sometimes, forgiveness isn't about making peace with the person who hurt you. It's about making peace with yourself, choosing not to carry what's already heavy enough to break you. Mama used to say, "Love is not proven in comfort, it's proven in the cleanup." And she was right. Denise's betrayal shattered something in me. But forgiveness was the broom. I learned that doing what's right doesn't always feel good. Justice can be lonely. But at the end of it all, standing alone with your dignity is worth more than standing together in a lie. When I look at Denise now, older, humbler, quieter, I don't see the sister who sold Mama's house. I see a woman who almost lost herself trying to be enough. And maybe, in her own broken way, she just needed to know that she was still loved. Not for what she did, but for who she was before she let the world harden her. We still argue sometimes. We still get under each other's skin. But every time we walk through Grace House, I see her glance up at Mama's photo, and I know the lesson's stuck. Because family isn't about who never hurts you, it's about who's willing to face what they broke. So if you're listening to this and someone you love has betrayed you, ask yourself, are you holding on to the wound, or are you ready to heal the scar? Would you have done what I did? Tell me in the comments. And if you're still holding a hurt you haven't faced yet, take this story as a sign you can rebuild. Not the same, but stronger.